sexy, sustainability.
Meditate, masturbate, medicate. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Kimbology. I am really excited. I have a guest for us this episode. This wonderful human being is actually one of my students. They started coming to me and taking my classes, and then I just saw their profile, and I was like, wait, Naman. I need to talk to them on the show. So, guest, can you introduce yourself to all the listeners?
Yes, that was great. My name is Kiana Lewis. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a pleasure mentor. I'm a sex educator. And what I always say is like somebody who will dance with you anywhere, anytime, in the club, in the streets, in your home, outside your car. So that's me.
Fuck yeah. Well, you know, one of my AKAs is twerking on your daddy's couch. So I think that's very on brand for the listener. So,
yes.
Kiana, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, obviously this is going to be a masturbate segment because we have a pleasure mentor, aka sex educator, on the show to school us on many things, because I know I need your guidance, and I'm sure many of us listeners also agree. But question first and foremost is like kind of like just like how did you get into this? Like, how did you want to become, or was it by kind of like accident? Like, how did you go about becoming a pleasure mentor?
Mm-hmm. First, I want to say I love that you are like, I need your guidance because I also get your guidance when I go to your class. So I'm like, I love reciprocal things. So this
come on
is wonderful for me. How did I get here? Yeah, I mean, it's slightly random, but I've always been on this sex education path, but it just took multiple different turns. I was a women's and gender studies major at DePaul. That put me around the right people, around the right professors, and had me working at the Women's Center. And I was like, okay, I see the type of people I want to work with. I see the things that I care about. How do I make that a job, though? Because it very much seemed like a dead end after college. But I did multiple like wonderful internships because we're just in the best city in the whole world. So there was a lot of great people and organizations to work with. So I started the nonprofit route, and I was like, I want to do sex education with youth. I did have sex ed in high school, but it wasn't very great. I know people had no sex ed in high school, so it mattered a lot to me. I thought I could do a corrective experience, not just for myself, but for other people. So I felt really passionate about that and working with people who don't feel like they have autonomy over their body yet, but absolutely do, and somebody just needs to tell them that. So I started doing that in college and after college. But the nonprofit route sometimes is a little limiting still, because you will still be working with CPS or with other schools who will limit what you can say, how you can say things. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen any comment section of any social media post online that talks about youth and sex education. It's brutal. Like,
oh man,
adults hate that shit out here. Like, it's constantly severely policed. And so I was like, this world's a little hard. I think I want to switch to adults. There's a lot more freedom with who I can talk to, how I can say things. This is Luna. She will be here.
Hi, Luna. Oh, we love a kitty on this show. My cat Georgie's somewhere around here. There's a chair he might join us with. But well, hello, Luna. Welcome to the show. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, we can have a little play day. She's a little black Scorpio cat.
A Scorpio.
Come on.
Ooh, she's spicy. I love that.
Yes, she's spicy. But yeah, I switched to adults because I realized adults either didn't get sex ed, or just because you turn 18 doesn't mean that you stop learning about yourself and your body and your sexuality and your relationships. So actually, there's a need for this everywhere, including with my damn self. And I swear to God that we teach what we need. And so I needed a lot of things. So I started teaching the things. And I'm a millennial Gen Z cusp. So I know social media well. I know the internet well. And
I love that you said a millennial Gen Z cusp, because that's perfect. Well, that's kind of nice. Then you get two perspectives, like, you know, like the Gen Z perspective and then the millennial. I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm 34 years old. So, but I definitely feel like I can relate a lot to Gen Z and like love Gen Z for many things. But I love that you said that. Yeah.
I feel
also,
that.
what's your sign? Can you break down your sign for us too?
Yes. So the short answer is that I do not follow tropical astrology, which is like the astrology that everybody follows. It's the Western astrology. It's like religion. Like there's multiple religions out there, but when you grow up thinking this is the only one, and then you're like, oh my God, there's so many different ways to believe in something. There's multiple different kinds of astrology. So I follow sidereal, sidereal. Some people pronounce it differently. Astrology, and that changed my chart a bit. And when I finally,
Really?
yes, and when I read this chart, Kimbo, I was like, I get astrology now. Like I relate to
Wait, I need
this.
to do this too, because like, yeah, I love that I love that you just said that there's many different types of astrology, just like religions, because like I didn't really know. I'm ignorant to that. Like I kind of assumed it was just kind of straightforward. But so
Yeah.
what does that mean then? So your charts are your placements are different?
Yes. Like
Okay.
your signs will either be the same or one before, like one off. Like they're not going to drastically
Oh.
change, and it doesn't mean that every single one of them will change, but it's likely that you will not have the same chart. And I just never really identified fully with my first chart, but I was like, okay, I guess this is astrology. And I really did love the concept of it, believed that, we have some kind of connection to something that's happening up there. But once I found this other type, I was like, this is me. So I go based off of that
Okay.
chart. And on that chart, I'm a Capricorn rising, I am a Virgo sun, and a Cancer moon.
Yeah, that's I mean like I know you in class and like just based off
Mm-hmm.
of like my relationship with you. That's nice. Can you say that one more time again?
Facts. Yeah, Capricorn rising,
Capricorn rising.
Virgo sun, and Cancer moon. So it's a lot
Yeah,
of like my whole chart is basically earth and water.
yeah, I love that though, because listen, you're getting the garden needs water, okay? Cute. Okay, cute. Yeah,
Yes.
because I'm just very fascinated. You said that because remember we just spoke a little bit because my son is Taurus. And my
Yes.
birthday's
And
May
I was
6th.
saying that like your Gemini placements come through so strong that I be forgetting the Taurus sun sometimes.
Yes, because you said because my Gemini rising and my moon is Gemini, so I have a
Bam. That's
lot
what
of
it is.
Gemini in my chart, but my Taurus is my sun. That's like your I don't know, like what would you say like your main? What would you say
Yeah,
like your
like who
sun is
you
like?
are at your core, your ego.
Yeah, right. My ego, like I am a Taurus. I'm a Taurus down. Like that's the thing. Like I love to be at home. Like I'm stubborn, prideful, which I've worked on, but like that I have to constantly work on that side. Otherwise, she just wants to come through. But I'm
Yep.
loyal to a T. You know what I mean? Like almost to a
Yes.
fault. Honestly, like that's gotten me into lots of. That's why I'm in therapy because I'm too
Hello.
trusting too trusting of people, always thinking that everyone has the good intentions when in reality that's not the case, right? There's not good
Yes.
without evil. So yeah, but
We
okay,
learn.
cool. I just wanted to kind of like let the listeners know in a sense of like more about who you that Virgo sun though. Yes, because like I love a Virgo. You got earth signs, I love it.
Yeah, people talk shit
Yes.
about the Virgos, but I'm like, they're beautiful people.
Oh,
Every
Beyonce's a
sign,
Virgo.
yes, every sign has their faults. Every sign has like something to like add to the world. And honestly, in a full chart, you probably have so many different placements and signs that like there's not
True.
really a person that wouldn't have a connection to a specific sign. So I've tried to like sway from the astrology memes sometimes that tend to have you like pigeonhole you into a spot or talk shit about a certain kind of person or whatever, because I'm like, it's all valuable. Like they're all
True.
here for a reason. It's all valuable.
True. No, I love this. And I love talking to you about this, especially because you have that different perspective with the astrology. And I feel like, some of the listeners and, like myself, we still need to be schooled on that stuff too. Like I know some things, but mostly the people that are around me, right? Like I have a lot of cancers in my life, like,
Yes, you
just
do.
like, one of my co-hosts, she's an Aries, so, but she's a April Aries and not a March Aries because March Aries are tough for your girl. I'll just put it that way. So, very tough. But anyways, back to
But yes,
yourself.
the lineage. How did I get
How
here?
long have you been? Yeah, I'm like, how long have you been a pleasure mentor? Like, what was it? Yeah, how long have you been
With
doing this?
this title, a year and a half. Right, that's where I was at. So when I switched to like online things, when I switched to working with adults, I was just putting my own story on social media. Truly, I was like, you know what? I'm a storyteller. My storytelling is like in my lineage, and that's just how I best get information out there. We learn through emotion, not facts. So if I want to talk about I don't know, if I want to talk about gender, or if I want to talk about relationship styles, like I feel like I have to talk about myself and what I've learned in my community and do it that way. And so I started doing that. People just clung on and were like, oh, this was really helpful, or thank you for sharing what you're going through. I've been through something similar, or that makes me think about this relationship with this friend, or whatever it is. And it just kind of snowballed from there and eventually turned into what I'm doing now. So I do multiple things in my job. I have multiple titles, but I've been in sex education for 7 years, maybe a little over 7 years now, in multiple different ways. And so I started working on the queer sex therapy page when it basically was, I don't know, maybe 6 months old or something like that. Had really started picking up steam and getting pretty popular. And that was 3 years ago. And so I learned this kind of perspective of how do I educate to a mass audience? Thousands of people, tens of thousands, and now it's hundreds of thousands. Like, how do I make a post that speaks to multiple people, is broad enough that it applies to multiple people, but also specific enough to like hook your attention on social media, which is a skill. But I was always craving for one-on-one, two-on-one, like very small sessions with people to be like, how does this apply to you though? Like, what do you specifically want to work on? And a bunch of people told me you should be a therapist, or what about this? And first of all, I'm not about school. I did not want to go back to school.
Listen.
Hello. You really couldn't pay me to go back to school right now.
Really? You're like done. You're done. Okay.
Never say never, but yeah, never say never, but I'm really not there right now.
Right.
And I also didn't want to talk to people about everything in their life. Like therapists, are specifically like mental health professionals, and they talk about so many things part of your life. And I was really only interested in talking about a niche group of topics. And I was like, who will let me do that? What place can I just talk to people about this and not have to go back and get this specific license? And that's how it started. I've done so many workshops and group work and online virtual things all throughout the pandemic, talking about pleasure and masturbation and partnered sex and erotic altars and all the things. And then it just came to a head a year and a half ago when I asked my boss, like, what would it take for me to start doing like pleasure coaching, like pleasure mentoring work? And they were like, yeah, let's see if the need is there. Like, let's see how it goes. And the demand was there, and it hasn't really stopped since. So here we are doing that one-on-one work and then like relational work with partners. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah. You guys, I'm over here like gagging. I'm like, tell me more. Like, I'm over here like, wow, that's awesome. No, I love hearing your story. And I love that your focus was so much on helping and mentoring pleasure and sex and focusing on that niche, because, with Kimbology, Meditate, Masturbate, Medicate, this is one of our pillars too. And to be honest with you, it's something that I'm constantly working on myself, but I feel like weird about the fact that it's such a stigmatized thing that we can't talk about or be sexual. I'm a pole dance instructor. I perform on stages and take my top off for money. Like,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? I shake my ass for some cash. Why is that so scary?
It should not be.
Why? Yeah, it's like it's a talent, like why not use it?
Yes.
And so you did mention you focused on the queer sex, and I said, do you identify as queer?
Yeah, I love the label queer. I've gone through a few different labels in the past like 6 years since I more officially came out, but yeah, love the label queer. I also feel very gender fluid. I don't love that word for me, but there's not a word that fits. So I just kind of stick with that one.
Thank you. Yes. Cause I just, it's a sense of like the difference too. Like, I know you focus on queer sex in a sense, cause like, I feel like when it comes to, a male and a female, it's way more complicated. Cause, we're just two different entities trying to figure and it's so hard. It's intensely, and there's ego and there's shame and there's insecurities wrapped up in it too. But I don't know. Like, that's why I think it's really interesting, and I'm excited to talk to you more about, do you only coach queer sex, or do you do both?
Oh, okay, I don't. Cool. I predominantly have queer clients because I think overall the practice that was started is, as far as I know, majority of us identify as queer, if not all of us who work there. And so I think that just attracts a certain kind of person because people are searching and seeking for queer therapy or queer coaching out there, like somebody who is at least like queer affirming. So I think that that attracts a very specific kind of person who is like, I haven't been able to find this elsewhere. So we get those people. But no, I don't only work with queer folks, because my thing is queering and like queerness, not in terms of like an identity, but like values and like a verb of like how you walk through the world, how you unlearn things that are not helpful for you. That to me benefits everybody. I don't think that's just for queer folks. I think everybody can learn from how queer folks, trans folks dress, their gender expression, how they understand their identity, how they undo what we think are like gender norms and relationship norms. I think everybody can benefit from that. So I've had straight couples, questioning individuals as clients before, who ask the same thing, where they're like, I don't know if I can be here. And I'm like, everybody can be here. I say that I'm queer centered because I know who I have in mind, who doesn't typically get services that they need, but I'm here for everybody because I think everybody can benefit from this work.
That was preach. Okay, I'm over here like, yes, servant.
Yes.
That was amazing. And like, honestly, it's funny because, you know, after class one day, I like pulled Kiana aside because I was like, I would love to have you on the show. And then she actually had a moment where like, you kind of like corrected me because, you know, as you know, like I'm heavily in the queer space. You know, I perform with Small World Collective all the time, which is a queer black predominantly, but colored really.
Yeah.
I would say by person of color community. And, you know, but I feel very just like, I don't know, I feel bad in the sense like if I don't want to take on identities that I don't necessarily deserve, or like I need, like I don't know, I felt like because I'm currently in a heterosexual relationship with a cis man, we're monogamous, I felt like, oh, I'm not, I don't deserve, that's not right of me to say that I am queer because of the situation that I'm in, but I'm very fluid myself, you know what I mean? Like I've, you know, I wouldn't say it, like you said, like I kind of how you had different identities going out throughout. I would say maybe me as well, but because for me it was always about the soul and not, you know, necessarily what they had, you know, I guess pansexual or, you know, kind of gender fluidity in that sense. Like I think that's kind of where, but queer is also something that I wouldn't mind calling myself. I just don't know, can I? Like I'm always like, can I call myself that? You know, so can you educate us a little bit more on like how do you identify yourself, and also just like the queer phobia behind all of it too?
Hell yeah. Yeah, I remember that moment where I'm looking at you like, I mean, you're describing yourself as queer right now, and I'm not going to put a label on you that you don't put on yourself. But if you think you're queer, if you believe that you are, if you say that you are, then please like take up the space in these queer spaces. And I know it can feel like that. I mean, I think no matter how you identify, every single person has felt queer imposter syndrome multiple times in a queer space, because there is no one way of being queer. So the question like, am I queer enough, comes up all the time for people. I think that there are certain people who may feel that more than others, but we are not the majority in the world right now. I think that that will continue to change as people just kind of undo and unlearn things that they are being taught and can allow themselves to be who they are. But in terms of people who are creating these spaces, saying that they're queer out loud, like that's not really the norm and how we move about this world. So to be that is pushing up against everything that you have been taught for decades of your life. So it's tough to feel like you can walk into a space and be like, yeah, I belong here. Because why would you feel like you belong? Like that, there's a lot of that internalized homophobia, queerphobia that people are dealing with on a daily basis, whether you're lesbian, whether you're gay, whether you're a trans person, whoever, like we're all dealing with that. And so I think especially folks that are bi, especially folks that are pansexual, somewhere where like they feel like they're attracted to multiple different genders. And I especially find this with people who still find themselves attracted to masculinity, especially cis men, feel like, ooh, I don't know if I can be here. I don't know if I want to, quote, take up that space, or if like that's right. And you use the word like, do I deserve to? And there is no deserve, right? If you say that you are queer, then that's the end of the story. Nobody can tell you otherwise. If you say, I know who I feel attracted to, I know who I have the potential to be in a relationship with, I know at my core, like this is how I identify, like these are my values, then that's that. But I completely understand that people are like, I don't know. And I just think that's a lot of internalized biphobia of like bi folks and pan folks feeling like unless I am in a situation where I myself am like very explicitly expressing that I'm queer, or my relationship looks like what a queer relationship I think should look like, then I can't be here. But you can't define yourself based on who you're in a relationship with. You can be in a relationship with anyone and still feel the way that you do internally. Like, queerness is not about behavior, it's just about what you believe about yourself. Because somebody can be queer and never have had what they consider queer sex before, right? But it's the same way that we put on like straight folks. Imagine like the little kids in your life and your family. Like, I'm sure somebody has called like some little boy like a heartbreaker. He's gonna break little girls' hearts one day. He's so handsome. He's so whatever. We're putting things onto kids that are growing up who have not identified themselves at all yet, but already assuming like, you have not had this experience, but you are straight. You have not had this experience, but you are this binary gender. So if we can say that about certain straight folks, why do queer folks have to prove themselves with a specific behavior? When I was, I wasn't straight, but let's say, that's what I thought at the time growing up as a teenager. I'm 13. I have not had my first kiss yet. I have not had my first like sexual experience like as a teenager, but I was already assumed to be straight, and like that was understood and okay. I didn't have to prove that yet. That was just the default. And so queer folks, I think, are constantly feeling like they have to check certain boxes, prove themselves, because they were already placed in a certain whatever it is. And they're like, I have to be way over here then to show that I'm not what they told me that I was this whole time. So I think queer folks are constantly like pushing up against a lot of norms.
Wow, that was amazing, because like I love the way that you really broke down all the like, because I was just like identifying with so much that you were saying, and I was like, oh my god, okay, cool, oh good, all right, like I'm just like, here at Kimbology, masturbate is a pillar, but I do not by any means identify as some sort of professional in this area, okay? I just like talking about it. So that's why we have wonderful folks like Kiana come on the show to educate us. Seriously, thank you for that. And I'm sure the listeners are all kind of thinking like, wow, like having those similar feelings. And, I definitely do. And it makes me feel, a lot better in the sense of like, because I did sometimes feel like I kind of always my whole life, because I'm also biracial, what I'm saying? Like I grew up in a, what do you call it? Like a like a mixed diverse area, as opposed to like, where my dad necessarily grew up on the south side of Chicago, where it was predominantly Black Americans, I grew up with a lot of Hispanics, white people. Like it was a really big mix. My mom is from Thailand, so Thai people. And so growing up as a child, I didn't talk a certain way. My hair type was very different. I would often get is that your hair? Like, is that your real hair? And I'm like, yeah, and I would be like so confused on why, and not knowing, because of, whatever, there's so much more there, especially with hair. We can get, that's a whole nother episode. But just, I felt, right. And I'm sure you can also, we are both in the curly hair community. So I'm sure we can bring you back and talk about hair another day. But, but when it comes to, sex and just like how I identify, it has been something that I just been completely unsure, more ignorant towards, because I didn't necessarily practice the feelings that I've been feeling, but I've been feeling them my whole life, and then just like, like, am I allowed to, like I definitely struggle to this day with that. So thank you for educating us on that. I think that's really, really important to have these conversations, because the more that we do, the more we can just learn from each other. So thank you.
Yeah, and that feeling that you just named, where you were saying you've been feeling that your whole life. So is that on you then, that you then feel like you can't express that or hold your own in a certain space? It's like, no, that would be then external like systems and forces and community values that then were put onto you that made you feel like that is something that I need to keep to myself, or not practice, or not be able to hold my own in these spaces. Like, that's not on you, which is why we call it like internalized queerphobia, internalized transphobia, internalized, because it didn't start with you. Like, that was something external that now you carry, which feels unfair for so many of us, that we have to, if it's racism, transphobia, whatever it is, like the internalized feelings that we it's like, oh, like now I have to work on unlearning that about myself when I didn't want to own that in the first place. I didn't want to believe that in the first place. So
Right.
we all grow up with a lot of messaging that is not actually beneficial to us.
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm just thinking about even just like, my father, my late father, he was pretty homophobic, so it's like I understand now in a sense of like you saying the external feel like I just it was kind of like brought upon me just from like living in my growing up as a young child, being confused, not knowing who I was and on all aspects. So that feeling is still very much there for me. However,
Mhm.
I just really feel like the more and more I am in wonderful spaces like, at Siren where I teach and then,
Mhm.
where I go and I can perform for Small World Collective and just kind of talking,
Mhm.
having conversations with yourself, like it does make me feel more, affirmed. I'm like, okay, like I am who I am and it's okay. So yeah, I
Right.
appreciate that.
Exactly.
So yeah, thanks for like the little mini sesh ourselves, but I'm just like I'm like over here like, oh, okay, cute. No. But back to, in a sense of like your pleasure mentoring,
Mhm.
journey. So you talk to straight couples, you talk to, queer couples, all the whole things, but like in a sense of like what is something that you feel is like a very common, a common occurrence that like people are always like, man, I don't know how to navigate this. Like, what is
Mhm.
something you always see?
Yeah. Well, first of all, every single person that comes to me just wants to know that they're normal. And that's how I feel going to my own therapist too, right? Like that's everybody just feels like I'm not the common experience. So could you please somehow affirm the fact that like I'm okay and I'm normal is really what I feel from everybody. Everyone tends to feel like they're the only one who's ever had the experience that they've had. And I like to say something that like I never know how people are going to take it, but I'm like, I like try to feel it out with each client. Like you might be the one to take this in. I say that you are not unique, but you are special. Like most of the things that we have thought and felt before, the relationships you've been in, multiple other people, multiple thousands of people have been in that,
Mhm.
situation before. So you're not unique and you're not alone, but you definitely are like a special person. So I feel like I work with mostly individuals. I do love to do couples work, but most of the folks that come to me come solo, either because they feel like they want to work on something on their own, or maybe they're just not partnered, or they're dating or whatever it is. And so they're just coming by themselves. And I feel like the number one thing, you know what, even with couples too, is people get really stuck around sexual communication. That's like the number one thing I hear is people get so anxious and frozen when they hear, what do you want from another person? They will completely freeze up, not know what to say, feel like they've never liked anything in sex before, and so they can't think of anything. So a lot of folks are just like, how do I communicate my desires to anyone? How do I learn my desires on my own so that I can better tell them to a partner or partners? And I often say that we don't know because we weren't taught about sex ed, right? So why would we know how to say what we like? How would we feel confident saying these incredibly vulnerable things to somebody else when we can barely say them out loud to ourselves? I also don't think the question, what do you want, is a very good one. I think it's way too broad, way
Yeah,
too
definitely.
general. And I think when it's asked in the moment during sex is not the environment to ask
Mm,
it in. So we'll often break down what is best to ask outside of a sexual context, what are the best questions to ask in a sexual context, and like how can we better ask it so that it actually like leads someone to a specific place. A better question during sex is like, how's this pressure for you? That's something that's in the moment where like you want that feedback. You can ask later, but you probably do want to know in the moment too. Like, how's this pressure? Or do you want me to go faster or slower? Those are good, like in the moment questions. Or like, how's this position for you? Do you need an extra pillow? Good in the moment things. Outside of sexual context, whether it's before sex or like aftercare, after sex, talking about things is when you say, yeah, like what are your hard no's? Like what are things you absolutely do not want to do in sex? Okay, like what are things that you love to have consistently show up in sex? Are there things that you haven't tried that you want to try? Is there a role that you tend to gravitate towards in sex? Like that's when you can get into more of the specifics and like have those conversations. So we'll often differentiate like during sex, not during sex. What did like before and after care look like? How can you have these conversations here in pleasure mentoring so you can feel really confident saying them to someone else, because it's tough to say out loud what you like, even if what you like you don't think is necessarily kinky or anything. It doesn't have to be about that, but like just saying like I want you to kiss me here can feel like a lot for some people.
Oh yeah, you're like asking for that, like that. For me, I can definitely admit that's like very tough to find
Yeah.
my voice when I'm in the
Yes.
moment. It's very hard. And I did some like tantra and like tantra. I was a part of this community in Australia, and I was this like tantra community, and
Mm-hmm.
it was wonderful. I like loved it so
Mm.
much. But I tried to tap into the tantra community here in Chicago, and it was a little weird, so I tapped out. So the ones I was like, ooh, okay, this is not the same. So
Bye.
but that was like the constant like using, like finding your voice in in tantra was like very hard, difficult for me. So then like the
Yeah.
constant like just mumbling or having an audible sound come out, is difficult because,
Yes.
I don't know about y'all, but it's like, come on, most of us don't have just like the freedom to just be as loud as you want. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
awkward. You're trying to be quiet for something.
Exactly.
So yeah, just that in its sense, is like, I feel like could be very difficult for people. I can see that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So thank you. No, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
I can just imagine all the things that you talk about, it can be just anything, because, and that's another thing, like maybe we can dive into just like in the sense of like you mentioned kink,
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of, what goes under that umbrella of kink, and like which kink, and like some people, maybe their kinks are just a little, maybe they're sensitive about it, maybe they're a little ashamed of their kink, and so how do you kind of navigate when you have someone that feels that way about
Yeah.
kinkiness?
I mean, man, kinkiness only exists because we have set sexual norms. Otherwise, I don't think it would exist. Like, it would just be whatever you find sexual is sexual. And if you don't find it sexual, then it's not sexual to you and it's not a big deal. But because we have like a very tight box of what is within sexual norms and sexual scripts and the types of roles that certain people take during sex, anything outside of the norm is considered a kink. So that's really broad language. And I think it's broad on purpose because for you, maybe like, having leather involved in sex is something that you really enjoy, and that's normal to you maybe. But if it's not normal to me, like that's where we get a lot of these issues and like a lot of stigmatization of like what is considered sexy, what is considered sexual, what is considered non-sexual. And there are non-sexual kinks for a lot of people, but we do associate like kink with sexiness and like sex most of the time. So I mean, for me, working with folks who either are trying to discover if they have kinks or know they do and are just working through shame, it always boils down to purity culture. Whether or not you specifically grew up religious, I can't really think of many places in the world where you wouldn't be impacted by religion. But I mean, I only grew up in the States, right? So I can speak for that. If you grew up here, you were impacted by religion because we live in a Christian nation, no matter what anyone wants to say. So
Ooh,
whether
girl.
it was in your home, whether or not it was in your school, your block, whatever it is, you were impacted. So there's something for all of us to work through of like, oh, I feel guilty about liking to be called this word or to be licked on this body part or to whatever it is. So we have to talk about purity culture, in sessions. If we're going to talk about kinks, we have to talk about, embracing and owning our pleasure and to be able to talk about kinks.
Oh, I absolutely love that you mentioned religion in this, because man, it's like so right on in the sense of like, yeah, a lot of the like stigmatized anything when it comes to sex is like literally all brought on from like a religious like controlling and manipulation.
Yes.
Girl, do not let me get into this conspiracy or my documentaries I've been watching about like just like the evangelicals,
Oh, hell no.
church infiltrating their asses in like political areas on, just like, and how they're just like
Mm-mm.
passing on this knowledge to their children so they can keep this like rhetoric going, and it all ties into systemic racism. It's like this big
Yes.
ass shithole of
Yeah.
fuckness, and basically, I just love that you mentioned, because like I know you're a pleasure mentor, but religion definitely because
Mhm.
in religion you're taught so many things, and it depends on what type of religion, you know what I mean? Like when I went to Bali and I was which is in Indonesia, one of my drivers, I mean, he was probably like in his 30s. He'd never
Mhm.
had sex, and he didn't even know what porn was. He
Mhm.
couldn't believe, like, we were talking about porn and stuff like that, and he was like, what are you talking about, you know? And then we were like,
Mhm.
yeah, and you could pull up some. He's like, there's movies where you
Wow.
can watch people. He was just like flabbergasted. And then like the other people that I was just kind of backpacking. So like I met
Mhm.
these random people from like Hawaii, and they were like showing him like scenes, and he just completely lost his shit because over there it's they're Hindu. So the
Mhm.
Hinduism it is in Bali mostly, and then so
Mhm.
that's just like new, like
Mm.
porn is banned there. You can't, I don't know how. Maybe she had a different IPN. I don't know how she even got into like see
Right.
porn, but like yeah, it's so stigmatized. It's so, again, like you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to talk about it. You're not supposed to see
Mhm.
it. So yeah, thank you for like talking. Thank you for bringing that up, because it just really makes me think like most of the things that we feel that are taboo were all taught. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, like you just grew up, as you're a kid. I'm sure as a kid, we all start touching each other or touching
Yeah.
ourselves and just like, this feels good, like, and like, of course, like we're just going with what feels good to our bodies, but then we're, maybe we caught by our parents or something. They're just like, what are you doing? That's bad, or da da da, and then you're over here like, what the fuck did I do wrong? Like I was just, this felt
Mhm.
good. Like, why can't I do this? So yeah, I just think that that's a constant struggle for society. Well, again, from the lens of growing up in the US, I grew up in the US
Yeah.
too, so I can agree.
Yeah, and then we not only internalize that like masturbation is bad, for example, but we are bad. Like it goes right down to like us and the core and who we are and our like how valuable we are. Um and that's what's so hard to unlearn. I went to a Christian school for several years of my life, so I'm like I'm up close and personal with religious
Oh, well,
trauma.
yep.
And even being in the field that I am, having the education that I have, it doesn't matter. You're not exempt from those things. Like I may have more knowledge, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't also take me so much time to unlearn the things. I always say that there's a difference between knowing and feeling. And so you can have all the theories, you can have all the facts, you can have all the knowledge, but it takes time to actually fully let something like immerse you and like into your beliefs and like take time to unlearn, because it was such a long time of you hearing these other things that it's not just going to turn around just because somebody tells you like, oh, it's okay to masturbate. That's not enough. Like that's not enough to go against what you've already like had indoctrinated into you. So I also just want people to be kind to themselves and be gentle and be compassionate, be patient, because you were on a journey like that you didn't want to be on in the first place. So choosing to even be in a spot in your life where you're like, you know what? I'm ready to do the hard work, but also do the very like compassionate self work to try to like make different decisions for myself and reframe my inner thoughts when they come up and try to have different relationships with people. That takes a lot of time and a lot of work. So if anybody's even doing an ounce of that, like congrats, you're already doing the things. And I I was a sex worker for almost 2 years, like right before the pandemic, and then throughout the pandemic, parts of it was on OnlyFans. And I mean, oh God, the things that I've heard from people and just the internalized shame that like everybody is experiencing. And I had majority like cis white men clients, as most like online
Mm.
sex workers do. And even them, y'all. I mean, we know that the marginalized folks are up against a different battle for sure, but the way that we do, like sexism impacts everybody, racism impacts everybody. You're not exempt from feeling like the restraint of these things. Like we are all up against the same harmful shit. It's just that some of us are more directly impacted than others. Some of us are impacted personally and systemically, other people just personally, but like we all have a lot to unlearn, because the way that these men would try to like use me as like a pseudo therapist, they were just so full of guilt, full of shame for the things they wanted to ask for, the things they wanted to see, the things they wanted to pay for. And it was a lot of like, okay. It kind of humanized the whole experience for me of like, we're all struggling with a lot.
No, that's so real. I'm literally taking everything in. I'm like over here high as shit, literally. And I'm just over here like, yes, because it's, yeah, even just like I would just like, on a whole different note, but like my stickers, how I have meditate, masturbate, medicate on
Yeah.
them. And it's like one guy, like literally, like I gave him a sticker and he like, like literally had a freak out from it. And I was like,
Yes.
chill, fucking chill, So yeah. And, and with that being, just to kind of also say, like, I wanted to open up the conversation to like some of the listeners. And so I actually went on and like on our stories, I did a poll and I said, hey, are there any questions that you have for a pleasure mentor that you'd want to like have us discuss? And so we have a couple questions, if you don't
let's
mind.
do it. Oh, it's my favorite.
Right? It's like, ooh, like listeners. Okay, this is your questions, guys. So it's like one of them was like, what age did you start masturbating?
Oh, like 2. I mean, I can't even remember.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't, you don't really have memories before the age of like 4 or 5 really,
Right.
that you remember, but I was told by my dad that my mom walked in on me, like whatever version of masturbation was, but touching my genitals when I was like 2. And she freaked out. She panicked. He did not. Like, I have a very unique story where my dad is the sex positive one and my mom is not.
Oh, interesting.
Does not mean that he's not problematic. That's not what I'm saying. But like, he was the one who taught me about like sex and consent and pleasure, actually. So he was like, I mean, so like she was like, what do we do? Like, what do we do about it? And he was like, nothing. Like, first of all, his quote was, I mean, she already found it. She's not going to stop doing it now. Was his exact quote.
I love. Wait, is your dad black, Kiana?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because you're biracial too, right?
Yeah, my mom is white. My dad is black.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah, it's
Come
like
on,
dad
Daddy.
Yes, mom grew up like by Midway, and then dad grew up in like Allgale Gardens and the projects, like 2 very different worlds.
Wow, and they found love and created
And they
you.
somehow came together. But yeah, he was the one who was like do what you got. First of all, he was like, that's you and your body. So no, he was very clear from as early as I can remember, whatever you want to do with your body, nobody can tell you otherwise. Like, it was almost like, please take this route, because that's like, you don't have to consider anything else or anyone else. But yeah, he talked to me about all that kind of stuff and was like, like, obviously don't do it in public. Like, this is not like, don't do it where people can see you, but you do what you want to do with your body. So I still had to work through a lot of the shame myself, just because of messages I maybe internalized from my mom, who was not as sex positive and comfortable talking about that. Like I said, the religious school, things overall. But yeah, I started too, and I haven't stopped since.
You're like, doing it and going on strong. That's right.
Going strong till 92.
Listen, your girl, it's one of the pillars, so you already know what goes down with me. But it's so funny that you said that like your dad was the one that was more open to talking about that, or like not completely was like, that's normal, whatever. Because I actually got taught about like tampons in my menstrual cycle from my dad. My mom didn't teach me. So and my dad's a stay-at-home dad. So like I kind of have those reversals too. Yeah. Oh, come on. These black men taking care of the kids, what I'm saying? They got to, someone's got to do it. And my mom, bless her, Pujana is very famous on this show, and from Thailand, came here when she was 19. So she's amazing, super strong woman, but whew, she's tough. She's a tough one. Imagine. So yeah, and so that's, but as an adult, we've got through that. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. 2 years old. That's pretty, in a sense of like, I don't necessarily remember, when I first started, but like I can recall times in my life of like doing things when I was like very young, but like, like rubbing items, just random items against myself to like, reach a climax, like hair. I had a collection. I would just have like a hairbrush, like, I don't know, like whatever. Like I was like, oh, anything accessible.
Nice. Yep.
I was like, okay, I'll try that next time, or like a teddy bear or whatever, because it just felt good. So, but I don't even know, like my young, like the age. Like you said, you can't remember it. You can only remember things like what? So like you're 4 years old, right?
Yeah.
I would say maybe like 6 or 7. Maybe I can remember, that I was doing those things. But I remember my classic thing was I like to put a mirror on the ceiling.
Oh, love that.
I would put like a little Polly Pocket mirror up on the ceiling. I would jump up.
Wait a minute, this is incredible.
I was a child, but I loved because I'm a voyeur. Like I love watching. So I literally, and then like my mom would come in the room and see this like tiny little
You're
mirror on
like,
the
what the fuck is this?
so she knew. I was like, no, you knew. Why is your daughter putting little tiny mirrors on the ceiling? Like, what the fuck, you know? So it's just, you know, the stories, I'm sure, you know, all the things as
Mhm.
kids, you know, we would like do. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's you, it's normal to you, it felt good. So it's like, own it, you know. That's why I'm not afraid to
Yes.
talk about it. I'm like, I think it's like, you know, very normal. Like we all experience these things. So thank you,
Mhm.
listener, for your question.
Thank you.
Um, and then the thank you, Kiana, for that wonderful, you know, I love that you were like, bitch, 2 years old. I was getting on and popping. So like, okay, the next question is like kind of broad, but at the same time, definitely something that I struggle with is how to focus on enjoying the moment and relaxing.
Mhm. Oh, yes. Have we all not been there? Like, yes. Um, I mean, I think I'll try to answer as broad as possible, but of course I'm like, "Ooh, I wonder what this person meant by that." I have so many like other specific questions for who asked because we all may not be present during sex for different reasons, right? Like for some of us, it stems from like body image issues. Other people, it might be gender dysphoria. Other people, it might be just overall like sexual anxiety. Like it might stem from different places. So the answer might be more specific depending upon like where that's coming from. But if you're trying to stay present during sex, and I am assuming this person is talking about partnered sex, but I can also answer for solo sex too. The first thing I would do if you're comfortable with the person that you or persons that you're sleeping with is to say that. Because what I've learned is like when you keep things to yourself, it festers and it is very hard to break things if you are also not able to name them out loud. Sometimes like you're giving something a lot more power than it deserves by just keeping it to yourself. You're like adding to the potential shame that you might be feeling. You're also like, oh, like no one else can help me with this or understand this or has been there. But if you can just tell the person or people that you're sleeping with, like, I feel like I have a really hard time staying present during sex, or I feel this, or I feel that. Like just even saying the thing out loud, getting it out of your body, externalizing it, I think is so beneficial. And I feel that way about a lot of things, not just the ability to not stay present during sex. But you could be surprised at like where your partner might be like, me too. And then y'all can just talk about it and empathize together. And sometimes just having somebody hear you and understand is so helpful. Other times somebody might have like a suggestion, or they might be like, can I check in on you more during sex? Should we do this? Like y'all can be a team and talk together. It doesn't just have to be you coming up with answers. So it might be like, you know, let's vocalize more during sex. Let's talk more. Will that keep you present? Like if we're silent, do you get in your head? Is actually the talking what's like not helping you? Like you can figure out together what's most beneficial. So I just always say like let it out and say it to somebody, or say it to your friend if you don't want to say it to the person that you're having sex with. Say it to somebody so y'all can talk about like what can I try, or help me not feel so alone with this. But a lot of people struggle to stay present during sex. I think depending upon who you are, my thing is always like, what sense can you go to, like out of your five senses? Like if I feel like, oh, I lost myself and like I'm trying to come back to the room, I'm trying to come back to the person that I'm with, I can focus on touch for me. Since I don't have any kind of like sensory issues, I'm like, where are they touching me right now? Okay, their left hand is on my left thigh. Okay, I feel like it's kind of warm there. Okay, and their hip is like resting on my stomach. And I'm just trying to like name the things that are going on, and then it brings me back to my body. For someone else, it might be like sound of like, what can I hear right now? I can hear the fan in the background, or I can hear the music that's going on. I can hear their breathing. I can hear my heartbeat. Like focusing on one sense, whatever one works for you, and like bring yourself back. And like, it's okay if you leave again. It's okay if like you dissociate again, but just the coming back process is what's most important, not judging yourself if you're not present.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Kiana, because I just love that, you know, how you said like, oh, in your head, what's your hand doing? Like, because that is definitely something I feel like I can just go off and just almost like not even kind of like just like zone out or something, you know, like it's just like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like it's weird. So I love that you're like, okay, let's bring yourself back in your body, you know,
Mhm.
and just kind of like be in the moment. So thank you for breaking that down. Like I think that's
Yeah.
something that everyone can probably like practice immediately, like even just like by yourself, like, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah, that
yeah.
doesn't even, that's advice for sex specifically, but also not just for sex, right? Because most things that we do outside of sex impact sex and like vice versa. Like they're not separate from each other, which of course this culture like wants it to be so separate, but everything is so intersecting. So I'm like, if you have trouble staying present typically in life, it will probably also impact your sex life. And if you're having a problem speaking up here, like you might have a problem speaking up somewhere else. Like it's all connected. It's all related.
That makes a lot of sense. Truly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, listener, for your question. I have another one. And then let's see. This one here is, what is some advice you would give to someone that is having a difficult time reaching climax with a partner?
Oh, love this question. This is like maybe the number 2 question I get, or like number 2 reason that people come to pleasure mentoring. I feel like the sexual communication piece is really hard, and feeling confident and comfortable with your own desires. The second one is the orgasm piece. So I'll say more of like the coachy answer first, and then I'll get to like the actual, like, how the fuck do you do this? My like coaching answer is that it sometimes decentering orgasm can help you orgasm. If there is a lot of pressure that you're putting on yourself, or maybe a partner is putting on you to orgasm, to reach climax in a certain way, that is so hard on your brain. Like your brain is your biggest sexual like organ. It is not your genitals, it is your brain. So
I love that you
if
said that.
right, like if you're feeling anxious up there, if you feel stuck, if you feel pressure, like that's not going to get you to where you want to go. So that like
Mhm.
almost every client that I work with, like we will like reroute. If orgasm is the focus, and this pisses a lot of people off, and I'm like, well, welcome to the session, is that we like we go left before we go right. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, what if we took orgasm off the table? What if we just played? Like, what if we expanded what we think is sex? What if we did a lot of other things, either with ourselves or with our partners, and just started there, like just focus on pleasure. And so you can learn what you really like you can learn what texture, what pressure, what temperature, what speed, like just feeling good. And then you can like focus and work on orgasm if that's a goal for you. Because just the like pinnacle, like big O is something either A, not everyone can experience consistently, or B, you're just way too in your head and it's really hard to get to. If the person who asked the question is like a person with a vulva, I would have a lot more questions of like, do you orgasm by yourself? And if you do, and like the problem is orgasm with a partner, then I'd be like, what are you doing alone that you're not doing with the partner? Especially like folks with vulvas, the way that I'm like, I will hear like, oh yeah, I use a vibrator every single time. And then you don't have vibrators during partnered sex. Well, your body is now like rerouted to being like, ooh, we love this kind of sensation. We love this vibration. We like have an association with this toy, this color, this whatever, this sound. And then your body's like prepped and primed to orgasm. Then you get into partner sex and somebody is going to town with their tongue and you're like, damn, that feels good, but I'm not getting anywhere. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's not what you're used to. So we need to incorporate toys more into partnered sex, or maybe like switch it up in your solo sex life. So I'm always like, what do you do by yourself if you can orgasm by yourself? And like, what's not translating over to partnered sex? Also, for folks with vulvas, we have like the clitoris is so big, y'all. Like the G spot to me is like just a name. The quote spot that everybody's talking about is just your clitoris. It's just the internal structure. So I'm like, maybe you need both external and internal stimulation at the same time, and you're only getting one of them. Maybe it's that you're not doing enough what people consider like foreplay. And I don't really use the word foreplay. I just think it's all sex. But like maybe you're not prepping yourself enough. Like maybe you need external stimulation for 40 minutes before you can get there. Maybe you need nipple stimulation while you also like, there's probably so much that could be happening that might be missing, where I'm like, there's not a direct answer to that question, but I'm like, let's just investigate, like, what are your erogenous zones? Are they being touched? Are they being touched as long as you need them to be? Is it the problem of like, I don't know how to communicate to this partner that like, I really need like a finger in my booty hole also while you do this, or else I'm not going to get there. Cause like, that's what I do with myself. So hopefully that's a little bit of like guidance to get this person where they want to go. But that's where I would start, and being like, what can I switch up? What can I communicate? What can I try differently? Or like, how much longer might I need to be paid attention to and you deserve to get to where you want to go.
Yes, preach. Thank you so much, Kiana. Like, I'm sure all these, like, everybody's probably like myself, just like this, ooh, tell me more, you know? But I don't want to keep you too much longer because honestly, like, I can sit here and talk to you for fucking hours, like,
I'm like, we
literally.
could go the whole afternoon.
And I love it because you're like, let's fucking go.
I'm like, we
And
could
I
do this,
definitely
I'm
want
sure.
to, and I definitely want to get to meditate, masturbate, medicate with you because that's gonna be super
Yeah.
fun. So, but you know, Kiana, thank you. I want to go ahead and wrap up the questions, which that was pretty basically. Thank you, listeners, for all your questions. But I wanted to have you just say, are there any resources that, you know, some of the listeners can like tap into, or you can share that helped you, or that you really like, you know, that you really like, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the OG thing that I read was Come As You Are. That's a book by Emily Nagoski, and she also has a podcast out now that's not even a year old yet. So if you're like, I'm not a reader, podcast it is. That is like the baseline science that we have out there about like different types of desires, responsive versus spontaneous, folks who, you know, this is what turns them on, what turns them off. It's the first person who was like, here's what we know about like bodies with vulvas and like how they respond to certain stimulus. So I would start there for a lot of people, no matter what body you have. Loved that book, love that podcast. I'm gonna plug the company that I work for and work at, but like at Queer Sex Therapy on Instagram, at the Expansive Group on Instagram, has some amazing, wonderful like sex ed that I just can't believe that we're just now getting around to talking about with people. I can only imagine like if I had this when I was younger, how different of a person I would be right now. My own Instagram at Healing is Imperfect if you want more of like a personal lens and like storytelling. I'm trying to think of some other like online resources.
So for your one-on-ones, like, you know, people
Mhm.
can contact you, and are you pretty like, do you have an open schedule? Like, how
Yeah,
is
if I don't, like I have a wait list always, and I work for folks for a shorter period of time than a therapist does. Like I'm not working with you for years. I'm normally working with people anywhere from like 4 months to 9 months. So the wait list is never too long. Like it normally, if I am filled up, I can get to people within like a month to 2 months. So Kiana at theexpansivegroup.com is how you can email me if you want sessions.
wonderful? Thank you. And you guys,
Yeah.
literally, as you can tell, so many years of knowledge and expertise, and just like completely make you feel comfortable with yourself and sharing this. So thank you so much, Kiana. Like, this has been like a wonderful chat, and I want to get nice and like fun and nasty with you. So
Let's get it.
we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're gonna do meditate, masturbate, medicate. We'll be
Cool.
back. This episode was brought to you by Lost Farm. From the makers of Kiva Confections comes Lost Farm. Strain-specific, plant-based, 10 milligram THC edible gummies and chews infused with what? 100% live resin and solventless live resin for a distinctively full spectrum, true to the plant high. Novices need not apply. Must be 21 or older to consume. All right, everyone, we are back from our break with Kiana Lewis, the pleasure mentor. And you know what? It's time for meditate, masturbate, and or medicate. And in this, guys, if you're new to the show, this is our wellness segment where we dive deep into the 3 pillars of the show: meditate, masturbate, medicate. You can, Kiana, choose anything, 1, 2, or talk about all 3, and just kind of like go off that pillar, and whatever you want to talk about, we can kind of get juicy. So what would you like to start with?
Yeah, let's do them all. Let's start with the first one, meditate.
Sickening. Okay, this is gonna be good. So meditate. So are there any meditation practices that you really love that you're kind of doing right now?
Yeah, I wanted to pick this one because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I'm not a stillness person when it comes to meditation. I value that, but that's not the way that I work on like presence or meditation. I'm a movement meditation person. Like I need to be moving to be present and to be in my body like that. So my 2 favorite ways to meditate are to dance and to play volleyball. Those are like the
Oh, I love
2
that.
spaces in my life where like I don't think there's anything else in this world that I could do that I feel more present than those things. Because when I'm playing volleyball, for example, there's nothing else that exists in the whole world. I don't even remember what my parents' names are because I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm so focused on like the present point, what's happening, like the inner like dialogue I have with myself. I'm like, this is the most meditative place I've been. When I dance, which is like why I also love coming to your class because I'm like, this
I was
is the
gonna
place
say,
where
do you meditate?
yeah,
Oh my God.
it's like the way I can just focus on like the movement at hand, focus on the thing that I hear in the background, like, okay, with this beat. And like it's the place. So like it's maybe not so traditionally how people think about meditation, but like I'm a big movement meditation person.
Oh my God. I think I just had an epiphany because I'm similar to you in a sense of like being still is so fucking hard. Like it
Yes.
is. I mean, I'll sit there and focus and make myself meditate every now and then, but it's hard. It's hard. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like yourself. Like that's why for myself, I always said pole was therapy because I love to just go and zone out and just fucking dance on the pole. And
Hell yeah.
I go into like a meditative state. So I can relate.
Yes.
I love that. Come on now. Come on,
Absolutely.
pole dancing is meditation.
Mm-mm-mm.
Come on. Love that. Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. So we did meditate and you said movement helps you. I love that so much. What
Mhm.
about meditate, masturbate? I mean, we've been talking about that forever, but I feel like that's your
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What about it? What about
And you're
masturbation?
like,
Just
yeah, what
anything?
about
I'm
it?
like,
Now,
anything?
okay. So for you, you mentioned toys. Is that something that
Mhm.
you particularly you need when you masturbate or no? How do you
Oh,
feel?
I love toys. I use both. Because I know I can get into too much of a habit where I've like only used toys for a while and then I'm like, hand doesn't seem as interesting. And that's when I know like switch it up. But yeah, I love toys. I love either like two ends of the spectrum. I'm like an external girly, so give me something for like my external clit and I'm there. So I either want
Same.
like a pointed something where like I can get so specific. Like I have this specific like We Vibe purple toy that I'm thinking of. It
I've
has like
heard
a
of
really
those.
love
Yeah.
We Vibe.
Okay.
Fucking love them. This
Okay.
one like toy is a pointed tip at the end. I'm like, that's great because the way I can move that around to exactly the spot that I want, I love. And
Uh-huh.
I also love an OG wand because that head is so big on a wand that like everywhere feels stimulated at once. So I love
Ah.
those. And I think We Vibe is also the brand that I have of like a suction toy that is powered by an app, which is my
What?
favorite. Yes. Hand that
Girl.
app to somebody else and just you don't have to do
Stop. And they're just
shit.
like going to town on it. That's crazy.
All
That's
you have to do
fun.
is hold it in the same place and they do the work. So I love that too. That's also
Okay.
it's like a yes. So big fan of that brand of We Vibe.
We Vibe. Okay. I've heard of We Vibe and I was like, And it's funny because thank you for sharing that because I really like it made me remind me of certain things. You said wand, but then you said the one with the big head on there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like your classic. I don't know if I would say just a big
Yeah.
wand or whatever.
Hitachi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like white with like a bluish like head. That's usually like the one that you
Yes.
see. And then that one. So are you using that like on your arm or are you like kind of using all over your body or like how do you in that
Good
sense or
question. No, I only use it on my genitals. It's too like that has I don't even know how to describe it, but that vibration is different to me than a different like smaller toy that it's like too much on other parts of my body. So I've used like other toys like the We Vibe toy that I'm talking about. Like that I'll use on like my nipples sometimes, but only sometimes. It's just like to me, if I'm gonna touch other areas of my body, I'd rather do it with my hands personally.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I'm very hands-on, I'm very handsy. But
Yes.
I found like one time I was like random as hell. And I don't even
Mhm.
know. It's like sometimes it kind of comes up and sometimes it doesn't. There's like a random spot on my foot. Like
Ooh, I
random.
love
And it's
that.
like and only on one foot? And I'm like I'd be like, yeah, it's like if you rub it the right way, I'd be like, oh, okay. It's like
Yeah,
connected directly to like my jet. I don't know. I found it like it was just like, oh, wait, my foot. So yeah, it's so cute.
absolutely.
The body is very interesting because you said nipple play, but like nipple play for me has never been like, I don't
Mm,
know, maybe I don't know, but I have heard that some women like maybe after they've had like a baby that's changed, like I don't have
mm.
children, so I'm like, I wonder if that ever will change because like my nipples, I'm like, yeah, they're okay. It's okay. You can just
Yeah.
they're there, like whatever.
Yeah, isn't it wild? Like every like body, like literal body is so fucking different. Like
So
that's just
different.
like we all have a body, but I'm like, I could come alone from nipple simulation. So like it's just
Really?
different people. Yeah, sometimes it's fun, like not to even like touch genitals at all. Not me. I can't really make myself come from my nipples necessarily, but somebody else can.
Oh, that's so, because I've definitely heard that. I'm like really? Is that good? Because that's just an area that never really felt
Right.
sexual to me. I mean, like, and like I said, that might change. Who knows? I don't know. It's
Who
just personally
knows?
right now, it's just not for your girl. But that's cool
Yeah.
though. I mean, I would love. Are you kidding me? Just play with it. I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's go. But we're not all blessed, I guess. I'm just playing. We all have different journeys. We all have different body parts. So, well, thank you for that. And then we got Medicate, which is obvious. And then in this world, we believe in psilocybin or cannabis. Don't believe in big pharma, really. Fuck big pharma. So yeah. Do you indulge? Are you a cannabis consumer?
I am a one-hit wonder. So if you gonna pass me anything, I am a one and done type of girl.
Really?
Oh yeah, I have such a low tolerance for weed. And I like it that way. Like because I'm not a smoker like that, but I do love the act. It's
as I take a puff of my vape.
I mean, I love the act of smoking. Sometimes I wish that I had a higher tolerance just so I could stay in the circle longer. Cause it is a very like peaceful feeling to do. But like, I am truly one hit and done. Otherwise you will see me having a panic attack in the corner. So it's like, I learned over the years that like, this is my tolerance. I can't use bongs. I don't really prefer bowls. Like I want a one hitter, a joint, or a blunt. Like that's good for me.
What about edibles? What about edibles?
Oh, hell no. Oh, God, that's worse. Because I could be sitting there and then 3 hours later, it smacks me at once. And I'm like, I am on the fucking floor. So it's just not for me. But man, it's funny as hell. Like I can have the smallest amount of weed and it will last me so long. And everybody knows it about me. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, I'm set for months. But I do like shrooms. I particularly like them in the form of chocolates. I also do not have a high tolerance for that either. So it doesn't take much for me. It's like, I'm very cheap. I'm like a cheap date when it comes to drugs. I'm a
cheap date, like I'm just, a little one drink for me, one little edible for me, and then shrooms.
Right.
Shrooms now, I'd love to. Okay, so with shrooms, do you notice a difference of feeling between the shrooms and like the weed, like for you, like?
They do have similar feelings to me, but to me, I can reach a higher point with shrooms that doesn't cause me a panic attack in the way that weed can for me personally. So, man, shrooms is just, I'm like so grateful to shrooms, and I'm still very new to them. I think the first time I tried shrooms was by myself, maybe like October of 2021. So it's still like relatively new, and I maybe do them every few months, but I fucking love them. Like a journey every time, and I actually prefer to do it solo because then I feel like I don't have to attune to anybody's energy. I can have my own experience spiritually. And like, if that's me staring at a fucking plant for like 2 hours, like no one's going to ask me if I'm okay. Like I am okay. I just don't want to be bothered. So yeah, I mean, I've done it in group settings and it's cute, but everyone at some point will be like, where's Kiana? And they lost me because I've gone off by myself to sit behind a curtain and like listen to this song with my eyes closed and go down a hole. So like, that's my shit.
I love that you said that too, because because I love to spa and shroom. Like I love like I love a nice, or like a hike, or like a nice, like, like something like very like nature meditative, like in spa for me. Like I don't go to the club and shroom. Like I can't.
Oh no, I can't.
Cannot. I would be so mean because I feel like I can become really a bitch when I'm on shrooms. I feel like I'm very mean when I'm on shrooms because I'm like, I don't want to be around people. I just want to be like alone. Like I can take my partner, but like literally, honestly, I just like we'll go to King Spa and then I'll do shrooms there, and I'll just go and find a hole somewhere, just be by myself. And it's great. It's great.
Yes, fucking love King Spa.
But it's like so busy now. Let's talk about how it's so busy now at King's Spot. It's annoying. I hate
even on a
it.
weekday, like you can't escape. It's busy all the time, not just the
It's
weekends.
annoying. I'm like, I tried, girl. I went on a Saturday the other day, and I,
No.
I
Why
know,
would you do that to yourself?
I know, because I couldn't stay very long. So I had, but my body, I had to do body work because of pole. Like,
Yeah.
so I just went in there, did the saunas, did what we needed to do, and got out of there because it was so
Dipped.
annoying in there. I was like, ugh, go home.
Everybody go home. This is for me. Why do you know about this place?
Ugh, no, because they bring their whole families. They're kikiing and laughing in the fucking. I'm like, I want to be quiet and zone out. You're fucking talking. It's so annoying. Anyways, look at me. Sorry, trauma there. Triggered,
sorry,
but
it's okay.
well, that's okay. So I love that you said because like so weed and shrooms. So you're a cheap date. That's amazing, and your tolerance. So even with you with weed, and if you ever did you ever at one point smoke it consistently, where like your tolerance went up a little bit, or no, it was always the same.
A little bit. I've had some partners in the past who smoke a lot, and I was always like, good for you. Like everybody again is so different. Where I'd be like, how do they do it? And like for some people, it's like a desire, and other people, it is a straight up need for like chronic pain and medical pain or mental health or whatever it is. And so I just don't think about weed on the day-to-day basis. So if I'm around it, then I will take a pull, but like, I don't think about it. So I'm not ever really buying it unless it's like for me and someone else. And yeah, so like, I think my tolerance went up a little bit where I became a 2-hit wonder at some point, but Kimbo, I never passed 2 hits. Like everybody knew to tap me out of the circle. Yes.
Wow.
And I was also like I called myself like a pillow princess when it came to weed, because also like I'm not paying, like I'm gonna take 1 hit and then dip. Like I will pay you in other ways, but like please.
I know that's right. She's a pillow princess puffer. No,
for
thank
one
you.
thing. Yes.
No, I love that. And I mean, high key, like if you're a cheap date. Like, yeah, weed is expensive if you're buying it all the time. So I grow weed now because I'm like, listen, your girl loves it now and needs it. And, I use it medicinally as well. I had for doing things like this or teaching pole dancing or being in, like, I need cannabis to like tap into all the Gemini placements that I have, because that bitch is, yeah. But my Taurus can be very fine at home with her chickens and her cats and away from the world. So it's like, and my partner's a Cancer, so we both are like very homebody like, and like can just kind of like cozy up. And so we kind of like want to create almost like a little sanctuary so we could just be, tucked away. So, but thank God for my Gemini places to keep me social and meeting amazing people like yourself. So, because I do love that too. So, oh my God, this has been so much fun. Like,
this is cute. This is cute.
Super cute. Like, I want to have you back on. Like, I just love this. Like, first of all, let's just talk about how amazing you are on, like, you are so, like, every question you have an amazing answer for. Like, I could just tell you've been doing this for so long, and that you really do, like, you're passionate about what you do. You're knowledgeable for about you have real life experience. You said you were a sex worker yourself. So like, I love that all this comes from just multiple parts of yourself. And so, and it's like, and then like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure you've, like you said, like you're not a you're not a sex, or you are a sex therapist, but like you said, like you don't have the
I'm not a sex therapist. That's why I use a different term, because I'm like, I don't want nobody to confuse me.
Right. And so like, I just think that's like, it's so annoying that like, yeah, you're like, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to get that. But like for me, like you're just so knowledgeable, and it's like, why does it matter though? And I don't think it matters in the sense of like a license or not, but like, I mean, I'm sure to like whatever the worlds of like medicine it does, but I'm just saying
it's like that white Western complex, right? Like, degrees mean things, and at the same time, I think there's a place for both. Like I have, honest to God, the most brilliant coworkers in the whole world who are sex therapists, and I see the difference in us, and I'm like, there's a need for both. Like some people may need you for certain things that I cannot provide, and some people it may feel more accessible to come to me and like have it feel different than therapy and like be in these sessions with me. So I'm like, I want us all to exist. I want us all to be out there, but I'm always trying to like make a voice for people who are not therapists, but are coaches, to feel valid in the work that they do.
Right. Yes. Oh, I really do appreciate that. And I think that's super important because like you said, it's all fucking like, I have a degree right now. I don't even fucking use it. I have a fine arts degree in fashion design. Do I fucking use it? No. You know what I mean? So what the fuck does it even matter? And like, you know, I better get my student loans taken away. I
Come
better.
on, Biden.
I bet, girl, I better. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all I got to say about that. And so I just think
Yes.
that, you know, there's different ways, like people learn differently. Like I'm a visual learner myself, you know. And so with me in pole dancing, you know, like I started teaching pole because I loved it so much. And I wanted to, you know, create like a safe space to, you
Mhm.
know, have it be more fun and not scary and not intimidating, in a sense of like, holy shit, you know, I'm gonna go on this pole and be half naked and twerk and move my body in a way I've never, first of all, never done
Yes.
before. And everybody in society, my parents, maybe my religion or whatever, tells me not to. You know, like body rolls. I can't even tell you, Kiana, like body rolls are the hard, like that's the hardest thing to teach, or like that's
Yeah.
that's the most difficult thing for some people to do, is just
Mm.
to roll their body like a chest stomach
You
sit. You
be
know, like that.
tight.
Yeah, like, but it's like their upbringing or whatever, they feel like they just like never felt like they can move that way, or I don't know. So
Mhm.
it's like I've loved watching some students just kind of transform in my eyes and be like, wow, like you used to be so rigid and just be like, I can't, and then now you're just over here like, you know, it's
Yes.
wonderful. And
I
I'm
mean, you were out
sure.
here doing the Lord's work, truly. And by Lord, I mean Audrey Lord. Like, you were out here doing the Lord's work because,
Yes,
you
I
know,
love that.
every time I've been to your class, I have not seen the same person twice. And that just shows like how many people are finding your class, that every time I've gone, I've met new people who, and like some of them have been there before, but every time there is at least one person who is brand new. So I'm like, damn, like you be reaching the people. So I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing what you're doing.
Oh my God, I appreciate you saying that so much, girl. Like that makes
Mm-hmm.
me feel so good to hear, because honestly, I love to do it. And so if I can just create this space of just like mutual benefit, because it helps me too, you know, like, and I appreciate you saying that, you know, thank you so much. Yeah, you like
Mm-hmm.
when I have you in class, you're a vibe, you dance, you're not afraid, you know,
I'm
you
gonna get it
literally
with
went
you.
back and did that Jamaican roll backwards the other day. I was like, ah! I was
I'm
so
gonna get it with you
excited.
every time.
I was like, ooh, I could really push it with her. She could dance. She could do it. She could
We
do
gonna
it.
push.
But I also want to be mindful too. Like, this is your first class. I don't expect you to be able to do all these things, because, you know, at the same time, this is difficult. Pole is not
Mm-hmm.
easy. And,
Oh hell
you
no.
know, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. And people, you know, some people watch it on, you know, on social media and they're like, oh, I can do that. And then they get on the pole. They're like, wait, Naman. Wait, Naman. This is hot. What? You know, is this what? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to eat because I'm a tourist, but I'm strong.
Yes. Both and baby. Both and.
Okay, both could be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with that, honestly, thank you so freaking much. Like, Kiana, you were one of the most amazing guests. Thank you. And at this time, if you anything that you can leave the listeners with, or if you want to plug anything last minute, please tell us where we can find you. Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, I think I said it, but plugs is at Healing is Imperfect on Instagram. And then if you want to book a session, you can email me, Kiana at theexpansivegroup.com. And if you want to find some of my other like amazing either educator colleagues or therapist colleagues, if you're looking for a therapist, you can go to at the expansive group on Instagram, because we have some dope ass people.
Love that. Okay, guys, you heard that. And so I'll put these links in the show notes as well. That way you guys can go and check them out. So I know I'm going to be
Yes.
looking, because listen, even though it's
Come
funny, because
on.
it's like when I'm on the pole, like I tap into this other Kimbo. But you know, sometimes it's hard being at home and being in your body, my Taurus self. Like I'm over here like a completely different person sometimes. So yeah, it definitely, you know, I think we all can I think this could be useful for everyone, just to kind of tap back into ourselves and just be in our bodies again and have conversations like yours with you, and that just talk about just pleasure, you know, because everybody wants
Absolutely.
pleasure. Everybody does.
Everybody.
And we deserve it. Shit.
Yes.
So,
Innately.
well, Kiana, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And guys, as always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe, and share this episode if it resonates with you. Kiana's amazing, and please support her and book a session with her. So yeah.
Hey.
Yay. And then guys, I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Say bye.
Bye.